Jordan had seen enough boarding schools to know when something was wrong. This one felt different from the moment he stepped through the iron gates. Westfield Academy sat on the edge of a dense forest in rural Massachusetts, miles from the nearest town. The building itself was ancient, built in 1873 with stone walls that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. He arrived on a Sunday evening in late September. The air was cold, carrying the smell of wet leaves and something else he could not identify. Other students moved through the corridors with their heads down, speaking in hushed tones. Nobody welcomed him. Nobody even looked at him. His room was on the third floor at the end of a long hallway that creaked with every step. The door was already open when he got there. Inside, a tall boy with sharp features stood by the window, arms crossed. His name was Derek Vaughan, and everyone at Westfield knew who he was. Derek turned slowly, his eyes scanning Jordan from head to toe. A thin smile spread across his face. "You must be the new one." Jordan set his bag down and nodded. He had learned not to show weakness in places like this. Derek walked closer, stopping just inches away. His breath smelled like cigarettes. "Welcome to hell," he whispered. Then he left without another word. Jordan unpacked in silence. The room was bare except for 2 beds, 2 desks, and a single window that overlooked the forest. He noticed scratches on the wall near his bed, deep gouges in the plaster that looked deliberate. Some of them formed words, but they had been scratched over so many times they were impossible to read. That night he lay awake listening to footsteps in the hallway. They stopped outside his door more than once, then moved on. He heard voices, low and urgent, but could not make out the words. Sleep came late, and when it did, it was restless. The next morning Derek was gone. His bed was empty, perfectly made as if he had never slept in it. His belongings were still there, clothes in the closet, books on the desk, a jacket hanging on the back of the chair. But Derek himself had vanished. Jordan went down to breakfast and found the dining hall buzzing with rumors. Groups of students huddled together, whispering. He caught fragments of conversation as he passed. Just like the others. 3rd one this year. They never find them. He sat alone at the end of a long table and ate in silence. Across the room, he noticed a girl watching him. She had dark hair pulled back tight and eyes that seemed older than her face. When their gazes met, she looked away quickly. After breakfast, the headmaster made an announcement. Mr. Calloway was a thin man with grey hair and a voice that carried authority despite its softness. He stood at the front of the hall and waited for silence before speaking. "As some of you may have noticed, Derek Vaughan is not present this morning. We are working with local authorities to locate him. If anyone has information about his whereabouts, please come to my office immediately." The room remained silent. Nobody moved. "Classes will continue as scheduled. We ask that you focus on your studies and allow the administration to handle this matter." He left without taking questions. Jordan spent the day trying to understand the social structure of Westfield. It became clear quickly that Derek had been at the top. Other students had either feared him or tried to curry his favor. Now that he was gone, there was a strange vacuum, an uncertainty in how people moved and spoke. In chemistry class, Jordan was partnered with a girl from breakfast. Her name was Elena Torres, and she had been at Westfield for 3 years. "You were his roommate," she said quietly as they set up their equipment. Jordan nodded. "Did he say anything to you? Anything unusual?" He thought about the whispered words in the corridor. "Welcome to hell." But something told him to keep that to himself. No, nothing. Elena studied him for a moment, then returned to the experiment. They worked in silence until she spoke again, barely above a whisper. "Derek was not a good person. He hurt people, made their lives miserable. But nobody deserves to just disappear. What do you think happened to him?" She glanced around to make sure no one was listening. "The same thing that happened to the others." "What others?" 2 students disappeared last year, 1 the year before that. All of them were bullies. All of them vanished without a trace. Jordan felt a chill run down his spine. And the school just keeps operating? Parents donate a lot of money here. The board does not want scandal. They call them runaways, troubled kids who left on their own. But we know better. That night, Jordan searched Derek's belongings. He found nothing unusual at first. Textbooks, clothes, a laptop that was password protected. But in the bottom drawer of the desk, hidden under a stack of old papers, he found a journal. The entries were sporadic, sometimes weeks apart. Derek wrote about his conquests, as he called them. Students he had humiliated, pranks he had pulled, fights he had won. The words dripped with arrogance and cruelty, but the tone changed in the final entries. Someone is watching me. I can feel it in the hallways, in the dining hall, even in my room at night. When I turn around, there is no one there, but I know. I know someone is coming for me. They left another note in my locker, just like the others got. 5 words. You will answer for everything. I am not scared. Whoever thinks they can intimidate me is going to learn a hard lesson. I run this school. Nobody touches me. The final entry was dated the day before he disappeared. Midnight. Bell Tower. If whoever is doing this wants to face me, I will be there. Jordan closed the journal and sat back. The bell tower had been locked for years, condemned after part of the structure collapsed. Students were forbidden from going near it. He looked at the clock. It was almost 11. He knew he should stay in his room, mind his own business, let the authorities handle it. But something pulled at him, a need to understand what was happening in this place. He grabbed a flashlight and left the room. The corridors were empty. Westfield enforced strict curfew, and security made regular rounds. Jordan moved carefully, staying close to the walls, listening for footsteps. He made it to the ground floor without incident. The door to the bell tower was in the oldest part of the building, down a narrow hallway that smelled of mold and decay. A chain and padlock hung from the handle, but when Jordan tested it, the lock was already open. Someone had been here recently. He pushed the door open and stepped inside. A spiral staircase wound upward into darkness. The wood groaned under his weight as he climbed. Dust covered everything, disturbed by recent footprints that led up and did not come back down. At the top, the tower opened into a circular room with tall windows on all sides. Moonlight streamed through broken glass, illuminating the space in silver light. And there, in the center of the room, Jordan saw something that made his blood run cold. Names carved into the wooden floor. Dozens of them. Some old and faded, others fresh and deep. He recognized several from headstones in the old cemetery beyond the forest. Students who had attended Westfield decades ago, students who had died young, and at the very center, surrounded by the other names, was Derek Vaughan. But it was not carved into the floor. It was written in something dark that had pooled and dried. Jordan knelt down and touched it carefully, still slightly tacky. Blood. A sound behind him made him spin around. Eleanor stood in the doorway, breathing hard from the climb. I followed you, she said. I knew you would come here. What is this place? She stepped into the room, her eyes scanning the names. Justice, or revenge, depending on how you see it. I do not understand. Eleanor walked to the window and looked out at the forest. Westfield has a dark history. Back in the 1920s, a student named Thomas Blackwell was bullied relentlessly. They tortured him, mentally and physically. The teachers did nothing. His parents did nothing. So one night, Thomas climbed to the top of this tower and jumped. Jordan felt his stomach tighten. His body was found the next morning. The school covered it up, called it an accident. But the bullying did not stop. It never stops at places like this. Over the years, more students took their own lives. Some jumped from this tower, others found different ways, and every single one of them was a victim of bullying that the school ignored. So what? Their ghosts are taking revenge? Elena turned to face him, and in the moonlight her expression was unreadable. Not ghosts. Us. The word hung in the air between them. We are the ones who disappear the bullies. Students who have been hurt, who have watched others suffer, who are tired of waiting for adults to do something. We take matters into our own hands. Jordan took a step back. You killed Derek. Derek is alive. Probably. We do not kill anyone. We just make them disappear. Give them a taste of what it feels like to be powerless, to be afraid, to be alone. They wake up somewhere far from here with no memory of how they got there, and a very clear message about what happens if they ever come back. And the blood? Theater. Pig blood from the kitchen. We need people to think the worst. We need the bullies to be afraid. Jordan looked at the names on the floor again, so many of them. How long has this been going on? Since Thomas Blackwell died, there has always been a group, passed down through generations. Students who lost someone, or who were victims themselves. We call ourselves the Tower, and we do what the school will not. She walked closer to him. You were Derek's roommate for one night. In that time, did he threaten you, intimidate you, make you feel small? Jordan thought about the whispered words. Welcome to hell. Yes. Elena nodded slowly. Then you understand. You understand what it is like to walk into a place and immediately be made to feel like you do not belong. Like you are prey. She gestured to the names on the floor. Every person written here made someone feel that way. Some of them drove students to suicide. Others just made life unbearable day after day. The school did nothing. Parents did nothing. So, we do something. Jordan felt his mind racing. Part of him understood the anger, the frustration, the need for justice. But another part recoiled at the idea of students taking law into their own hands. How many of you are there? Enough. We are organized. We have been doing this for decades. There are rules, protocols. We do not act on impulse or emotion. Every target is carefully vetted. We gather evidence, testimonies from victims, patterns of behavior. Only when we are certain do we move. And Derek, what did he do? Eleanor's expression hardened. Derek put a freshman in the hospital last year, broke his arm in 3 places during what he called a prank. The boy was too scared to press charges. Derek walked away with a warning. 2 months ago, he leaked private photos of a girl who rejected him. She tried to transfer schools, but her parents could not afford it. She is still here, terrified every day. Jordan remembered the journal entries, the arrogance dripping from every word. Where is he now? I cannot tell you that. But he is alive, and he will never hurt anyone at this school again. She turned to leave, then stopped. You have a choice to make, Jordan. You can go to the headmaster tomorrow and tell him everything. The tower will be exposed, and things will go back to the way they were. Bullies will rule, victims will suffer, and the cycle will continue. Or you can keep this to yourself and understand that some forms of justice exist outside the system. That is not a choice, that is coercion. No, a choice is what Derek never gave his victims. This is consequence. She left him alone in the tower. Jordan stood there for a long time staring at the names. He thought about every school he had attended, every bully he had seen, every victim who suffered in silence. He thought about administrators who turned blind eyes, about parents who dismissed concerns, about a system that protected the powerful and abandoned the weak. He descended the stairs slowly, his mind churning. When he reached his room, he locked the door and sat on his bed. Derek's belongings still surrounded him, a ghost of a presence that had vanished in a single night. Sleep did not come easily. The next morning, Mr. Calloway called an assembly. The entire student body gathered in the auditorium. Jordan sat near the back, watching faces. Some students looked genuinely concerned, others seemed relieved. A few wore expressions of barely concealed satisfaction. We have an update on Derek Vaughn, Mr. Calloway announced. Local authorities received a call this morning from a gas station approximately 200 miles from here. Derek was found disoriented, but physically unharmed. He has been reunited with his family and will not be returning to Westfield Academy. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Derek claims he has no memory of how he got there or what happened during the time he was missing. Medical examination showed no signs of foul play. At this time, we are treating this as a medical matter and respecting the family's privacy. Jordan watched Elena across the auditorium. She sat perfectly still, her face neutral. I want to be clear, Mr. Calloway continued. Westfield Academy has zero tolerance for any form of harassment or intimidation. If any student feels unsafe or witnesses concerning behavior, you are encouraged to report it immediately. We take these matters seriously. The words rang hollow. Jordan had heard similar speeches at every school he attended. They meant nothing without action. After the assembly, students dispersed into the hallways. Jordan caught fragments of conversation. He probably just had a breakdown. Good riddance. My parents are freaking out. They want to pull me out. Did you see his face in that photo they showed? He looked terrified. Jordan went to his room and began the process of making it his own. He removed Derek's belongings, packing them into boxes that would be shipped to his family. As he worked, he found more evidence of the person Derek had been. Photos of students with cruel captions written on the back. A notebook filled with personal information he had gathered on classmates, leverage for future manipulation. A collection of items that clearly belonged to others, trophies from his reign. That evening, Elena knocked on his door. She carried a book. Chemistry homework, she said when he opened the door. We need to finish the lab report. Jordan let her in. They sat at his desk and worked in silence for several minutes before she spoke. You did not go to Calloway. No. Why not? Jordan set down his pen and looked at her. Because I spent the night thinking about a kid at my last school. His name was Sam. He was smart, funny, kind. And he was bullied every single day for 2 years. I watched it happen. Teachers watched it happen. Everyone watched it happen. One day Sam just stopped coming to school. I heard later he had tried to kill himself. He survived, but he was never the same. Eleanor listened without interruption. I told myself I was not like the bullies. I never participated. But I never stopped them either. I was a bystander, and in some ways that is just as bad. So, no, I did not go to Callaway. Because what you are doing, what the tower does, maybe it is the only thing that works. That does not mean it is right. No, but it is something, and something is better than nothing. Elena closed her book. The tower is not recruiting you. I want to be clear about that. We do not seek members. They find us, usually after they have been hurt badly enough to understand why we exist. But you should know that what we do comes with a price. We carry the weight of every action. We second-guess ourselves constantly. We wonder if we are becoming what we fight against. It is not glorious, it is not easy. Then why do it? Because someone has to. Because we remember what it felt like to be powerless, and we refuse to let others feel that way if we can stop it. She stood to leave, then paused at the door. Derek will not talk about what happened. They never do. The shame is too great, admitting they were made to feel exactly what they made others feel. But the message spreads. Other bullies hear. They wonder if they might be next. Some of them stop. Some of them transfer. A few even change. The tower works because of fear, yes, but also because it shows victims they are not alone. After she left, Jordan sat by the window and looked out at the forest. Somewhere out there, Derek was trying to piece together what had happened to him. Somewhere out there, students who had suffered at his hands were breathing easier. Somewhere in this building, the tower was watching, waiting, ready to act again if necessary. Jordan thought about the choice Elena had presented, but he realized it was not really a choice at all. It was an acceptance of reality. The world was not fair. Systems failed. Adults failed. Sometimes justice had to come from unexpected places, carried out by unlikely people. He did not know if he agreed with the tower's methods. He was not sure he ever would, but he understood them. And in a place like Westfield, understanding was a form of complicity. The days that followed established a new rhythm. Jordan attended classes, completed assignments, observed the social dynamics that governed student life. He noticed things he had missed before. The way certain students moved through hallways with confidence, while others pressed themselves against walls. The hierarchies that formed around lunch tables. The subtle cruelties that happened in plain sight. He also noticed the tower. Not directly, but in small signs. A note slipped into a locker. A conversation that ended abruptly when someone approached. Students who seemed to watch everything, cataloging behavior, taking mental notes. In history class, Jordan learned about Westfield's founding. The school had been established by wealthy industrialists who wanted their children educated away from the corruption of cities. They built it in isolation, surrounded by forest, believing distance would instill discipline and character. What they actually created was a pressure cooker. Students far from home, subject to intense academic and social pressure, with limited oversight and even less accountability. The perfect environment for cruelty to flourish. One afternoon, Jordan found himself in the library researching the school's history. Old yearbooks lined the shelves dating back to the founding. He pulled several down and flipped through them, looking at faces from decades past. He found Thomas Blackwell in the 1924 yearbook, a thin boy with serious eyes, standing at the edge of a group photo. There was something haunting about his expression, as if he already knew what was coming. Jordan kept searching and found other names from the tower floor. Students from different eras, different decades, but all with something in common. In their photos, they stood apart. They were the ones at the edges, the ones not quite fitting in, the ones whose eyes held a particular kind of sadness. Finding anything interesting? Jordan looked up to find a librarian standing nearby. Mrs. Chen had worked at Westfield for 30 years. Her hair was gray, her eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Just looking at old yearbooks," Jordan said. Mrs. Chen glanced at the page open in front of him. "Thomas Blackwell, tragic case. I was not here then, obviously, but the story has been passed down. Brilliant student, talented artist, destroyed by cruelty. Did anyone face consequences? The bullies? No. Different era. These things were not taken seriously. Boys will be boys, they said. Build character, they said. Meanwhile, a young man died." She sat down across from Jordan. Things have not changed as much as we like to pretend. Oh, we have policies now, procedures, fancy language about inclusion and respect, but human nature remains the same. Some people derive pleasure from causing pain. And institutions protect themselves first, students second. Jordan studied her carefully. You know about the disappearances. It was not a question. Mrs. Chen smiled slightly. I am a librarian. I know everything that happens in this school. I know which students check out books on survival skills. I know who researches old buildings and forgotten tunnels. I know who reads about psychology and manipulation. I see patterns. And you do not report it? Report what? Students reading books, that is literally my job to encourage. She leaned forward. I also know which students come in here with bruises they try to hide. I know who cries in the stacks when they think no one is watching. I know who checks out the same book over and over, because it is the only thing that makes them feel less alone. She stood up and began reshelving books. Every institution has its shadow side, Jordan. The question is not whether it exists, but what we do about it. Some of us believe the shadows can serve a purpose, can protect those the light fails to reach. She walked away, leaving Jordan alone with the yearbooks and his thoughts. That night, he heard footsteps in the hallway again, but this time they stopped at his door. A piece of paper slid underneath. Jordan waited until the footsteps faded before retrieving it. The note contained a single sentence. The tower sees you. Jordan stared at the words for a long time. It was not a threat. It was an acknowledgement. They were watching him just as he had begun watching them. The question was what they intended to do about it. He burned the note in the sink, washing the ashes down the drain. Whatever came next, he would face it. The following week brought changes to Westfield. Subtle at first, then impossible to ignore. A senior named Marcus Chen, known for his aggressive behavior on the lacrosse field and off it, suddenly became withdrawn. He stopped participating in sports, spent lunch alone, avoided eye contact in hallways. When Jordan passed him one afternoon, he heard Marcus muttering to himself, they know everything. 2 days later, Marcus withdrew from school. His parents cited personal reasons. A junior named Ashley Price, who had built a reputation destroying other girls' social lives through rumors and exclusion, arrived at school one morning to find her locker covered in printed screenshots. Every cruel message she had ever sent, every lie she had spread, displayed for everyone to see. She lasted 3 hours before leaving campus in tears. She did not return. The tower was accelerating. Jordan could feel the tension building throughout the school. Students who had previously acted with impunity now looked over their shoulders. Conversations happened in whispers. Trust eroded. But something else was happening too. Victims were speaking up. A freshman who had been hazed reported it to administration. A group of students who had been excluded from activities demanded inclusion. The power dynamic was shifting, and those who had suffered in silence were finding their voices. Jordan observed it all with a mixture of fascination and unease. The tower's methods were extreme, arguably wrong, but they were undeniably effective. Fear had replaced complacency. Bullies were being held accountable, even if that accountability came from an underground organization rather than proper authorities. In chemistry class, Elena worked beside him as if nothing had changed. They completed experiments, discussed reaction rates, acted like normal students. But Jordan noticed things, the way she watched certain people, the subtle signals she exchanged with other students. The tower operated in plain sight, hidden only by the willful blindness of those who did not want to see. One afternoon, Jordan stayed late in the library working on an essay. The building was nearly empty, most students at dinner. He was deep in concentration when someone sat down across from him. The boy was young, probably a freshman, with dark circles under his eyes and a nervous energy that radiated off him. His name was David Chen, Marcus's younger brother. You were Derek's roommate, David said without preamble. Jordan nodded slowly. My brother told me something before he left. He said Derek got what was coming to him. He said there is a group here that makes bullies disappear. He said they came for him next. I do not know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. Everyone knows. They just do not say it out loud. David leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. Marcus deserved it. I know he is my brother, but I know what he did. He hurt people, he hurt me. Jordan saw the pain in the boy's eyes. But now I need help, and I do not know who to ask. There is someone else, someone worse than Marcus or Derek ever were. And nobody will do anything about him. Who? His name is Cameron Wade, Sr. His father is on the board of trustees. Cameron is untouchable, and he knows it. Jordan had heard the name. Cameron Wade was student body president, captain of the debate team, headed to an Ivy League school. On paper, he was perfect. But Jordan had learned that paper rarely told the whole story. What has he done? David's hands trembled as he pulled out his phone. He showed Jordan a series of messages, photos, videos, evidence of systematic manipulation and abuse. Cameron had been blackmailing students for years, collecting information, using it to control them. Those who resisted faced consequences. Rumors spread about them. Opportunities disappeared. Some left school entirely. "He has something on me," David said. "Photos from a party last year. I was drunk. I did things I am not proud of. He said if I do not do what he wants, everyone will see them. My parents' college admissions, everyone. What does he want? He wants me to steal exams from teachers, frame other students for cheating, destroy people's academic records. He is building his application for college, and anyone who might compete with him needs to be eliminated." Jordan felt anger rising in his chest. This was different from Derek's physical intimidation or Marcus's aggression. This was calculated, cold, predatory. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you know about the tower. I see the way Elena Torres looks at you. I see the way you move through this school, watching, learning. You are either part of them or you are becoming part of them. And I need help. I cannot do this alone." Jordan closed his laptop. "Even if what you are saying is true, I cannot help you. This is not my fight. It is everyone's fight. That is the point. Cameron has hurt dozens of students. He will hurt dozens more. And because his father donates millions to this school, nothing will ever happen to him. Unless someone makes it happen." David stood up, leaving his phone on the table. "Everything is on there. Messages, photos, recordings. I have been documenting everything for months. I was going to take it to the headmaster, but then Marcus told me what really happens to bullies here, so I am taking it to you instead. Do with it what you want. But know that if you do nothing, Cameron wins. And people like him always win unless someone stops them." He walked away, leaving Jordan alone with a phone full of evidence and a decision to make. Jordan sat in the empty library as shadows lengthened across the floor. He scrolled through David's phone, seeing message after message, photo after photo. The sheer scope of Cameron's operation was staggering. He had files on nearly 100 students, leverage on teachers, even information on administrators. This was not just bullying. This was systematic corruption. Jordan thought about his conversation with Elena, about choice and consequence, about justice and revenge, about the line between right and wrong when the system had already failed. He picked up the phone and left the library. He knew where Elena would be. She had a pattern like everyone else. After dinner, she went to the art studio in the basement of the Humanities building. She said it was to work on projects, but Jordan suspected it was where the tower met. The studio was empty when he arrived, or appeared to be. Jordan set the phone on one of the work tables and stepped back. "I know you are here," he said to the empty room. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Elena emerged from a supply closet, followed by 3 other students Jordan recognized from classes. They all watched him carefully. "David Chen came to me," Jordan said. "He has evidence against Cameron Wade. I think you should see it." Elena picked up the phone and began scrolling. Her expression darkened with each swipe. She passed it to the others. They looked at each other, and something unspoken passed between them. "This is extensive," Elena said finally. "More extensive than anything we have dealt with before." "Then deal with it," Jordan said. "Is that not what the tower does?" "Cameron Wade is different. His family has power, real power. Making him disappear will bring scrutiny we have avoided until now. It could expose everything. Then let it be exposed. If the tower only acts when it is safe, when it is easy, then what is the point? You said you protect those the system fails to protect. Well, the system is failing David Chen and dozens of others right now." One of the other students spoke up, a tall girl named Sarah. "He is right. We have been too cautious. Cameron has been on our radar for over a year, but we kept waiting for the perfect moment. There is no perfect moment. There is only now." Elena looked at Jordan for a long time. "If we do this, there is no going back. For any of us. You brought this to us. You are involved now, whether you want to be or not. I know. The tower does not forgive mistakes. Once you are in for life. Every action we take together you share responsibility for. Can you live with that? Jordan thought about Sam from his old school, about Thomas Blackwell jumping from a tower a century ago, about David Chen trembling with fear in the library, about every victim who had ever suffered while others looked away. Yes, he said, I can live with that. Elena nodded slowly. She turned to the others. We need a full meeting. Tonight. Everyone needs to vote on this. The others dispersed, leaving Jordan alone with Elena. You just changed the trajectory of your entire life, she said. I hope you understand that. I understand that doing nothing is also a choice, and I am done choosing nothing. That night, Jordan was led through tunnels beneath the school he had not known existed, old maintenance corridors and forgotten passageways that connected buildings and led to places long abandoned. They emerged in the basement of the bell tower, in a room that had been converted into a meeting space. 20 students were gathered there, ages ranging from freshman to senior, faces he recognized from hallways and classes. They all watched as he entered. Elena stood at the center. Jordan has brought us a case. Cameron Wade. You all know the name. You all know what he is. The question is whether we act now or wait. She presented the evidence from David's phone, projecting it on a wall. The gathered students watched in silence. Jordan saw anger on their faces, recognition. Several of them were clearly among Cameron's victims. When the presentation ended, Elena called for discussion. Students spoke about their experiences with Cameron, about friends he had destroyed, about lives he had derailed, about the protection his family's money provided. Then they voted. It was unanimous. Cameron Wade would be next. The planning took 3 days. Jordan learned how the tower operated, the careful methodology behind every action. Nothing was left to chance. They gathered more evidence, interviewed more victims, built an airtight case, not for the authorities, but for themselves. They needed to be certain. Cameron's routine was mapped down to the minute. He woke at 6, ran 5 miles through the forest trails, showered, attended classes, led student government meetings, studied in the library until 10, then returned to his single room in the senior dormitory. He was disciplined, predictable, confident in his untouchability. That confidence would be his downfall. Jordan's role was surveillance. He watched Cameron during classes, tracked his movements, noted who he spoke with and when. He saw the way Cameron operated. A word here, a smile there, always charming, always in control. But Jordan also saw the fear in the eyes of those Cameron approached, the way they tensed, the way their voices changed. They were all afraid. On the 3rd night, Elena called another meeting. The plan was ready. Cameron has a scheduled debate tournament this Saturday, she explained. He will be off campus from 8 in the morning until approximately 9 at night. That gives us 13 hours to access his room, gather all the physical evidence he has stored there, and prepare the next phase. Sarah pulled up blueprints of the senior dormitory on her laptop. His room is here, southeast corner, 3rd floor, single occupancy, private bathroom, reinforced lock. But I have been working in maintenance. I can get us a master key. Another student, a tech-savvy junior named Marcus Liu, took over. Cameron keeps encrypted files on his laptop and phone. But encryption is only as good as the password. I have been watching him type. I have his patterns. I can break in. Elena turned to Jordan. Your job is to stay visible. Go to breakfast, attend the library, be seen in public spaces. Establish an alibi. If this goes wrong, if anyone asks questions, you were nowhere near the senior dormitory. Jordan nodded. He understood. They were protecting him, the newest member, while the experienced operatives took the real risks. What happens after you gather the evidence, he asked. Elena's expression was cold. We give Cameron the same choice we have given others. Disappear quietly, or have everything he has done exposed publicly. But with Cameron, we add a special condition. Every piece of blackmail material he has collected will be destroyed. Every student he has controlled will be freed. He does not get to keep his leverage as a parting gift. And if he refuses, he will not refuse. Nobody refuses when they see what we have on them, when they understand how completely we have dismantled their power. Fear is a powerful motivator. Saturday arrived cold and grey. Jordan watched from his window as Cameron left campus in a suit, carrying his debate materials, confident and self-assured. He had no idea this was the last normal day of his life. Jordan went through the motions. Breakfast in the dining hall, a few hours in the library working on homework, lunch with some classmates from history class. All the while his mind was elsewhere, imagining what was happening in the senior dormitory. The tower moved like shadows. Sarah used the master key to enter Cameron's room. Marcus Liu cracked the laptop encryption in under 10 minutes. What they found exceeded even their expectations. Cameron had not just been blackmailing students. He had been selling information to others, running a network that extended beyond Westfield to other prep schools in the region. He had files on parents, teachers, board members. He had turned extortion into a business. They copied everything, then searched the physical space. A safe hidden behind a loose panel in the closet contained printed photos, USB drives, even physical journals detailing his operations. Cameron had been arrogant enough to document his own crimes. By the time Jordan returned to his room that evening, it was done. Elena sent a single text. Complete. Cameron returned to campus at 9:30, exhausted but satisfied. His team had won the tournament. He climbed the stairs to his room, already thinking about the essay he needed to finish before Monday. He opened his door and froze. Every surface was covered with printouts. His own files, his own photos, his own words, displayed across walls, desk, bed, floor. In the center of his desk sat his laptop, open to a document with a single paragraph. You have 48 hours to withdraw from Westfield Academy. You will cite personal reasons. You will destroy all leverage you have on every student, teacher, and administrator. You will cease all extortion activities immediately. If you comply, this stays between us. If you refuse, every piece of evidence in this room will be sent to law enforcement, college admissions offices, and media outlets. You have built an empire on fear. Now you will learn what real fear feels like. Welcome to hell. Cameron stood in his doorway for a full minute, not breathing, not moving. Then he began tearing the papers down, frantically searching for his backup drives, his hidden safes, his security measures. Everything was gone. They had taken it all. He grabbed his phone to call his father, then stopped. What would he say? That students had broken into his room and stolen evidence of his crimes? That he had been running an extortion ring and now he was caught? His father's money could make many problems disappear, but not this. Not when the evidence was so extensive, so damning. Cameron sat on his bed, surrounded by the ruins of his carefully constructed power structure, and for the first time in years, he felt genuinely afraid. Jordan heard about it the next morning. Cameron had been seen leaving the headmaster's office, pale and shaken. By afternoon, word spread that he was withdrawing from school. Personal reasons. Effective immediately. Students who had been under his control began to breathe easier. David Chen thanked Jordan in passing, a brief moment of eye contact that said everything. Others simply seemed lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from the entire campus. But Jordan felt uneasy. The operation had been successful, but something about it troubled him. They had become exactly what they fought against in some ways, a hidden power structure operating outside the rules, making decisions that affected lives without oversight or accountability. He found Elena in the art studio that evening. "We won," she said before he could speak. "Cameron is gone. His victims are free. Justice was served." Justice or revenge? Does it matter? Yes, it matters. Elena set down her paintbrush and faced him. "You are having doubts. That is normal. Everyone does after their first operation. You are wondering if we are the good guys or just another form of tyranny. Are we? I do not know. I stopped trying to answer that question a long time ago. All I know is that students are safer now than they were a week ago. That has to be enough." But it was not enough for Jordan. Over the following days, he wrestled with what he had participated in. The tower had delivered results, yes, but at what cost? They operated in darkness, using fear as a weapon, becoming the very thing they claimed to oppose. He began researching more about the tower's history. Using the library archives and old student newspapers, he pieced together a timeline. The organization had formed shortly after Thomas Blackwell's death, started by his closest friends who were consumed by guilt and rage. Initially, their actions were simple: standing up to bullies, protecting vulnerable students, creating a network of support. But over decades, as new members joined and old ones graduated, the mission had evolved, escalated. What began as protection became punishment. What started as justice became something darker. Jordan found references to operations that had gone wrong. a student in the 1960s who was falsely accused and driven from school, only to be vindicated years later. Our case in the 80s, where the tower's actions led to a lawsuit that nearly shut down Westfield. Incidents that had been buried, forgotten, erased from official history, but still lurking in old documents and faded memories. The tower was not infallible. They made mistakes. And those mistakes destroyed lives just as surely as the bullies they fought against. He brought his research to Elena, spreading the documents across a table in the empty art studio. You need to see this. The tower has a history of errors, false accusations, excessive punishment. We are not as righteous as we think. Elena examined the documents carefully. Her expression remained neutral, but Jordan saw something flicker in her eyes. Recognition. She already knew. Every organization that exists long enough accumulates failures, she said quietly. The tower is no different, but the alternative is doing nothing. Is that better? Maybe there is a third option. Maybe we can reform the system instead of operating outside it. Reform takes time. Victims do not have time. While committees meet and policies are drafted and appeals are filed, students suffer. The tower provides immediate relief. At what cost? How many innocents have been caught in your net? How many mistakes are acceptable? Eleanor slammed her hand on the table. Do you think I do not ask myself these questions every day? Do you think I sleep well at night? I know the tower is flawed. I know we make mistakes. But I also know that before we acted, Derek Vaughan put a kid in the hospital and faced no consequences. Cameron Wade destroyed dozens of lives and was headed to an Ivy League school. The system does not work. It has never worked. So we do what we must. And who decides what must be done? Who has that authority? We do, because nobody else will. Jordan gathered the documents. That is not good enough anymore. If the tower is going to exist, it needs accountability. Rules, oversight, ways to verify information and prevent mistakes. You want to bureaucratize vigilante justice? That is a contradiction. No. I want to make sure we are actually the good guys and not just another group of bullies with better justification. He left Elena in the studio and went to find the others. Over the next week, he met with tower members individually, presenting his research, making his case. Some agreed with him. Others were defensive, protective of the organization they had devoted themselves to. But seeds of doubt had been planted. A meeting was called. The full tower, all 20 members, gathered in the basement beneath the bell tower. Jordan stood before them and laid out his proposal. We need a charter. Written rules about how we operate, how we verify targets, how we make decisions. We need a review process for every operation. Multiple members must agree before we act. And we need a way to make amends if we make mistakes. That will slow us down, Sarah argued. By the time we verify everything and get consensus, victims could be hurt. Then we move faster, but smarter. We gather evidence thoroughly. We involve more people in decisions so no single person can act on bias or emotion. Marcus Liu nodded thoughtfully. He has a point. We have been operating on trust and instinct. That worked when the tower was small, when everyone knew everyone. But we have grown. We need structure. The debate lasted hours. Some members were adamant that changing the tower's methods would weaken it, make it ineffective. Others saw the wisdom in Jordan's proposal, recognized the risks of unchecked power. Finally, Elena called for a vote. 12 members supported establishing a formal charter and review process. 8 opposed. The measure passed. Over the following weeks, the tower transformed. They drafted documents outlining their mission, their methods, their limitations. They established a committee system where every proposed action had to be approved by at least 5 members who independently verified the evidence. They created an appeals process where targets could present their own evidence and make their case. It was messy. It was complicated. It slowed them down considerably, but it was better, more just, more accountable. Jordan watched the changes take hold and felt something he had not expected. Hope. Maybe vigilante justice could be reformed. Maybe an underground organization could operate with integrity. Maybe there was a middle path between doing nothing and becoming what you fought against. Then Cameron Wade's father arrived on campus. Mr. Wade was a tall man with silver hair and a presence that commanded attention. He came with lawyers, investigators, and a determination to understand exactly what had happened to his son. Cameron had told him nothing, but a father knows when his child is terrified, and Mr. Wade was not the type of man to let mysteries remain unsolved. He met with Headmaster Calloway behind closed doors for 3 hours. Then he began interviewing students, staff, anyone who might have information. The investigation was thorough, professional, and increasingly focused on the pattern of disappearances that had plagued Westfield for years. The tower went quiet. No meetings, no operations, no communication beyond necessary classes. They waited to see if their secrecy would hold. Jordan felt the tension building. He had pushed for accountability, for structure, for transparency, but now those very principles made them vulnerable. Written documents could be found. Committee decisions left paper trails. Their attempt to be better might be what exposed them entirely. One evening, Mrs. Chen approached him in the library. "Mr. Wade has requested to speak with you tomorrow," she said quietly. "He knows you were Derek's roommate. He thinks you might have insights." "What should I say?" Mrs. Chen looked at him with those sharp eyes. "The truth, whatever that means to you. But remember that some truths serve justice and others serve revenge. Choose wisely which truth you tell." That night, Jordan barely slept. He played out scenarios in his mind, conversations that might happen, questions that might be asked. By morning, he had decided on his approach. Mr. Wade met him in a private conference room. The lawyers were absent. It was just the two of them sitting across a polished table. "Thank you for meeting with me, Jordan. I know this is uncomfortable. I want to help if I can. My son withdrew from this school suddenly. He will not tell me why, but I know fear when I see it, and Cameron is afraid of something. I want to understand what happened here." Jordan chose his words carefully. Westfield has a culture problem. Students who behave cruelly face few consequences because their families have money and influence. That creates an environment where victims have no recourse through official channels. Mr. Wade's expression tightened. "You are suggesting my son was a bully. I'm suggesting that power without accountability leads to abuse, and that when systems fail, people find alternative solutions. Alternative solutions like making students disappear? I cannot speak to specific events, but I can tell you that students here have felt unsafe for a long time. When they reported problems, nothing changed, so they found other ways to protect themselves." Mr. Wade stood and walked to the window, looking out at the forest beyond. "My son is not innocent. I know that. I have seen the kind of person he was becoming, the entitlement, the casual cruelty. I told myself it was just a phase, that he would mature. But I was lying to myself because acknowledging the truth meant acknowledging my failure as a father." He turned back to Jordan. "I came here angry, ready to demand justice for whatever was done to Cameron. But talking to students, hearing their stories, seeing the fear and relief mixed together, I realized something. My son was not the victim. He was the perpetrator, and whatever happened to him, whatever scared him so badly he left school, maybe he needed that wake-up call." Jordan remained silent. "I am not going to pursue this investigation further," Mr. Wade said, "but I am going to do something else. I'm going to use my position on the board to implement real reforms at this school. Anonymous reporting systems, independent oversight, consequences for wealthy students who break rules. If my son's downfall can lead to meaningful change, then maybe some good comes from it." He extended his hand. Jordan shook it. "Thank you for your honesty," Mr. Wade said. "And tell whoever is behind the disappearances that they got their message across. But also tell them that the next time they want to punish a bully, there might be better ways, legal ways, ways that do not require operating in shadows." After Mr. Wade left, Jordan sat alone in the conference room. The tower had survived barely, but the message was clear. They had been noticed. Their secrecy was compromised. And while Mr. Wade was not pursuing action now, others might not be so understanding. He called an emergency meeting that night. The full tower gathered, tense and worried. "We need to make a decision," Jordan said. "We can continue as we are, knowing we are being watched, knowing that eventually someone will expose us. Or we can do something different, something radical." "What are you suggesting?" Elena asked. "We go public. Not with names, not with specific operations, but with our mission. We acknowledge that there is an underground organization dedicated to protecting students when official channels fail. We challenge the administration to prove they can do better. We turn from shadows into pressure." The room erupted in arguments. It was too risky. It would destroy everything they had built. They would all be expelled or arrested. But others saw the possibility. By going public, they removed the mystery, the fear, the power that came from being unknown. They became a movement instead of a conspiracy. They challenged the system to reform by acknowledging that alternatives existed. The debate raged for hours. Finally, as dawn approached, they voted. 13-7 in favor of Jordan's proposal. Eleanor, who had voted against, stood up. If we are doing this, we do it right. We write a manifesto. We outline every failure of the system that led to the tower's creation. We name no names but cite specific incidents. We give Westfield 1 semester to implement meaningful reforms. If they do, the tower dissolves. If they do not, we continue operating, but now with public acknowledgement of why we exist. The manifesto took a week to write. Every member contributed, sharing stories of bullying they had witnessed or experienced, detailing the times they reported incidents that went nowhere, listing the gaps in the system that allowed cruelty to flourish. They printed 500 copies and distributed them throughout campus one night. By morning, every student, every teacher, every administrator had access to the tower's statement. The response was immediate and divided. Some faculty were outraged, calling it vigilante nonsense. Others admitted quietly that the students had a point. The student body split along predictable lines. Those who had been bullied supported it. Those who had done the bullying condemned it. But the conversation had shifted. For the first time in Westfield's history, the culture of cruelty was being discussed openly. The administration could no longer pretend the problems did not exist. Headmaster Calloway called an all-school assembly. He stood at the podium, the manifesto in his hand, and addressed the gathered students and faculty. This document accuses Westfield Academy of systemic failures in protecting students from harassment and abuse. Having reviewed the specific incidents cited, I must acknowledge that these accusations have merit. The room fell silent. We have prioritized reputation over welfare, donations over justice, order over compassion. That ends today. I am announcing immediate reforms, including an independent student safety committee with real authority, mandatory training for all faculty on recognizing and addressing bullying, and a zero-tolerance policy that applies regardless of family status or financial contribution. He looked directly at the section where Jordan sat. To those who wrote this manifesto, who call yourselves the Tower, you have made your point. Your methods were extreme, arguably illegal, but effective in forcing this institution to confront its failures. I ask that you give us a chance to prove we can do better, and if we fail, I suppose you will let us know. It was not quite approval, but it was acknowledgement. The Tower had won in a way by forcing the system to change. Over the following months, Westfield transformed. The reforms were real and substantive. Reports of bullying were taken seriously, investigated thoroughly, resulted in actual consequences. The culture of fear began to dissipate. The Tower held one final meeting. They voted unanimously to suspend operations for 1 year and monitor whether the changes held. If they did, the Tower would dissolve permanently. If they did not, it would reactivate. Jordan stood in the bell tower one last time, looking at the names carved in the floor. Thomas Blackwell, Derek Vaughan. All the others who had suffered and caused suffering. The cycle had been broken, at least for now. Elena found him there. We did it. We actually changed things. For now, but systems can slip back. People forget. Then we remember. That is the Tower's real purpose. Not punishment, not revenge, but memory. We remember what happens when good people do nothing, and we make sure others remember too. They descended the tower together and locked the door behind them. The padlock clicked shut, sealing away the room where so much had been decided, where so many had gathered in the name of justice. Jordan returned to his room and found a new note under his door, but this time it was not from the Tower. It was from David Chen. Thank you for giving me my life back. I can breathe again. Simple words, but they meant everything. Jordan looked out his window at the forest beyond, at the ancient buildings of Westfield Academy, at the place that had tested him and transformed him. He had come here a bystander, someone who watched but did not act. He was leaving as something different, someone who understood that justice sometimes required courage, that standing up meant accepting consequences, that the right path was rarely the easy one. The Tower would fade into legend now, another ghost story whispered in hallways. But its impact would last. Students would remember that change was possible, that power could be challenged, that victims did not have to suffer in silence. And if the system ever failed again, if cruelty ever returned to rule Westfield's corridors, the tower would be ready, not to punish or destroy, but to protect, always to protect. Jordan packed his belongings as the semester drew to a close. He would be transferring to another school next year, moving on to the next chapter. But he would carry Westfield with him, the lessons learned in its halls and towers, the understanding that justice was not given but fought for, that institutions could be changed but only through courage and sacrifice. On his last night, he walked through the empty corridors. He passed the bell tower, the art studio, the library, all the places where the tower had operated. He thought about Derek whispering "Welcome to hell," not knowing he would be gone by morning. He thought about Cameron Wade discovering his empire had crumbled. He thought about every bully who had learned that actions had consequences, and every victim who had learned they were not alone. The corridor was dark and quiet, but somewhere in that darkness Jordan knew students were watching, ready to act if needed, committed to protecting those who could not protect themselves. He smiled and walked on, leaving Westfield Academy behind but carrying its lessons forward. The tower might sleep, but it would never truly die. It lived in every student who refused to be a bystander, in every person who chose courage over comfort, in everyone who believed that justice mattered more than power. "Welcome to hell," Derek had whispered. But in the end, hell had found him instead.